everybody, welcome back to another Groundbreak Games tutorial on using the free Paragon assets provided by Epic Games. Thanks to several people providing ideas in the comments section below, I'm going to show you guys how to replicate the animation montages for multiplayer. So instead of your attacks and actions only showing up for the character who's initiating them like I'm showing here, we'll have a multiplayer attack replicated like this on the server so that everybody can see it. So if that's something that's interesting to you, stick around. Back and let's get started. The first thing we're going to start out doing today is heading into the third-person blueprint, which is in third-person BP blueprints, third-person character. Open that up, and the part we're going to be dealing with today is the two montages, left and right attack, that I have showed you guys previously, and you can use this to basically replicate anything else that you would need. Your emotes, for instance, you can do the same thing, just keep repeating the process for any of these montages that you wish to play. The basic locomotion of running that we've already set up is replicated by default through the character movement, so only the montages you add actually have to be replicated on the server. So first of all, we're going to disconnect our two inputs here and go ahead and disconnect this, and we can get rid of that anim instance, and just copy, Control-C this, and delete those, compile and save. And we can leave this for right now, and we're going to go back into Content, Mannequin, Animations, and open up the third-person anim blueprint, anim BP. And when you open this up, you should have the provided control set up here from Unreal. That's getting some information for speed and whether or not you're jumping in air. So we're going to Control-V and paste the montages in here so that we can kind of get started with those. And whoops, we'll just move those down about here. First thing that we need to do is set a reference to back to our third-person blueprint over here, so that the anim blueprint has a good reference to use in the future. And we'll just cast one time and set a reference rather than putting castings all over the place, because after a while, when you get into your game, you'll see you're going to end up having quite a lot of stuff in here, so you want to start keeping it as organized as possible. So off the speed, the setting of the speed, we're just going to pull and cast to third-person character, and off the object, we're going to try get pawn owner, and that's going to get the owning pawn, or pawn that's owned by the character controller. So off of this, we're going to set our reference, which we need to create over here as a variable. So I'm just going to call it TPC ref for third-person character reference, and then change the variable type. Type in third-person character. You want the one with the little picture, the little mannequin, and then you want to set that as an object reference. So compile and save, so that variable is created. Pull that in with Alt, and we're going to set that. And use the third-person object, or I'm sorry, the third-person character is going to plug right in and set this variable for us. So now we can use that as a get anywhere we want. So off of this, we're going to create a sequence. And we can just leave 2 on the sequence for now. As you, if you want to add your montages in and so on, you can just keep creating pins and adding as you go, and just keep repeating the steps that I'm about to show you. Right now we just need 2. So off of this, what we're going to need to do is create a couple variables that we can set from our third person character, so that when they are set here, the server actually replicates that, and before the montage is played, it's the server firing the montage, so that everybody sees it. So the first thing we'll do here is create 2 variables down here called, let's start with left attack, change that to a bool, and when you create the next variable, it'll be a bool already. Right attack, and so now we have 2 variables that we can set. So what we'll do is pull our third person character reference in twice, using control, so you can get it. And off this first one here, we're going to type is valid, so that we know, first of all, that we're dealing with our third person character reference. And we can just copy this, or Control W will duplicate something instead of leaving it copied into your clipboard. That's very handy if you want to move certain or reproduce certain things while you already have something saved in your clipboard that you don't want to replace quite yet. You can just Control W to duplicate instead. So now that we have our check to make sure that we're valid on the left and right attacks both before we initiate them, we're going to set these 2 variables, and after, we'll see down the road, we're going to have to create the variables to set them with via this reference, but for right now we're not going to worry about that. So set left attack, draw that in, and set right attack, and we'll just leave those for now. Don't worry about how they're being set quite yet. And then what we'll do is we need a branch here, and an easy way to get a branch, instead of, you can come in here and just type branch, or another quick and easy way to do it, because this is a very common piece of logic here, is just hold the B key down, B for Bravo, and then just click once. So if you're pressing B and click, you just produce a branch automatically. And then we're going to set the branch according to this bool here. And then, again, move that out of my way. So then off this, we want to do this once. So just type do once, and then the reset is going to be when this is false again. So Control W to reproduce that, and plug that in. And then when that's completed, we can go ahead and fire off our montage, and it's just going to fire once due to this, and then when this is via the bool that we're going to create here in a minute, when this goes back to being unset again, this goes false, the reset is triggered, and now it's ready to fire another montage, so it doesn't get stuck. So for now we'll leave that, compile and save. And so what we have to do is come back to our third person blueprint, which we're casting to here, and get the variable that's going to set this replicated on the server. So if we come back over here, create 2 more variables. So we'll do left attack with a question mark, right attack with a question mark, and then we're just kind of asking the question, are we left attacking, are we right attacking, and then this is kind of answering that question, so you can keep those variables separated in your mind. I like to always keep the question mark bools in my character blueprint, and in the anim blueprint you're kind of answering that question, and then it's easy to keep them straight but keep them name the same. So anyway, now that we have those two variables set, we need to, or created, we need to make sure that they're both replicated. So after you compile and save on the variables section, just click it once so it's highlighted, and over here in replication, make sure that those are set to replicated. Just do that to both. Compile and save. And replicated variables are useful for things like this. For say a sword swing, that when somebody is standing in your presence, they're able to see it take place. If it's something that you want, say you've opened a treasure chest and another person comes along in 10 minutes, and that treasure chest, you want it to remain viewed as open, so the player that comes along also sees that it was opened already. Rep notify is used for actions like that. So things that will remain in the server memory are rep notify, and things that just happen once but need to be replicated, you can use a replicated variable. So anyway, the next thing we need to do is drag left attack and right attack in, and we're going to set those to true. And then we're going to create two custom events. Whoops. And if you need to quickly rename something, if you select it, F2 will go to the rename. So I'll just call this left attack event. And right attack event. And once you've created these, click one time on them and make sure that they are run on server and reliable. And we'll just do that to both real quick so we don't forget. It's a very easy thing to forget and then wonder why it's not working later on. So we'll just connect those up, kind of explain what's going on here as we get a little farther. So now that those are done, we need a way to set those, and the easiest way to keep track of this is to create two functions over here on the left under functions. So left there, hit the plus sign on function, and we'll just say left attack, right attack. And in our left attack, just double click on it, make sure that your input node here is showing left attack. We can draw off this and just say switch has authority, and this is going to check whether or not the player initiated this or the server initiated this, and depending on which, it's going to do something different. So if the server is the one initiating the left attack, all we need to do is set the variable to true, because it's being set on the server, so that's fine. So if it's not the server, if it's the remote or the player, then we need to come back and kick this custom event off, which fires on the server. So left attack event is the one we're looking for. And so that just says set this variable if you are the server. If you are not the server, then go to the server, set the variable on the server. And so we're going to do the same thing over here under right attack. Switch has authority, and then right attack, pull in with alt, set that to true, and then if you look over here, we name this one right attack event. Okay, so now that we have our two little function set up here to make sure that when this montage is played, it's played on the server, played on the remote client, which is the player, so that the player sees. If we only had it running on the server, the player who initiated it wouldn't see it. So we want to make sure that the player sees it and that it's run on the server as well, so that everybody else sees it. So we have that set, and get rid of those. And now we need to pull in these left attack, right attack functions and just connect them up to our action mapping, which is I have set to left and right mouse buttons. So press the button, it comes into left attack, checks to see if it's the server. If it is the server, sets a variable. If it's not the server, it goes to the server, sets the variable. Okay, so the only thing we need to do now is, now that we have this left and right bool, which is replicated so that it's run on the client and the server itself, come back over here, and then we need to get that bool and connect it up to the one that's local to the NM blueprint, so that when it passes from the player to the NM blueprint, it's happening on the server and then fires for the player. So we'll just pull off that and left attack, and remember we have the question mark set, so we just need to get that and then connect it up. Same here for right. Get the right attack. And compile and save. And so that we don't only swing one time and have it replicate and then we can't swing again, we have to set this variable back to false, so that this is set back to false, so that our do once is reset. If not, it's only going to allow it to do once. So when we swing and this comes all the way through and plays the montage, it would be sitting there waiting for a reset and won't allow it to fire again. So we have to set this back to false after this is played out. So it's very easy to do. Just type delay, and we want a retriggerable delay, and just set that to the return value for the montage is how long this montage is going to take to play. So at the end of the montage being played, we can set that variable back to false. So you can duplicate that. We'll just do this same time. Pull in our character reference, and we're going to set left attack. So make sure that you don't just set left attack, because then you're going to set this one only on the player, not on the server. So you have to pull in this third person character reference first, pull off that, and then get this left attack, and then leave that set to false by making sure that this is not checked. And then the same thing down here. Duplicate that, set right attack, and we'll just leave it set to false. And now that we have this little setup here replicating, so that when we push the key, left mouse button fires off this function that checks to make sure that we are the server, and if we are, it sets the variable. If we're not, it fires this event, which sets the variable. This is constantly firing, so it's always making sure that this variable, basically waiting to fire once this variable is actually set to true. So when it goes to true, now that we've pushed the left mouse button key, we have set a replicated variable so that it's also setting on the server. That allows on the player's NM blueprint for this to fire into the branch. Does one fire into the montage play, and after the montage is finished, it resets the variable which resets this back to false, which resets the do once and now is ready to fire again. And before you hit play, just make sure you come up here and click this drop down, change the number of players to 2 or more. I have mine set to 3. And then when you launch, just hit new editor window pi, and you'll be able to adjust the size of these windows or position them however you want for the multiple windows. So if we push play, run over here so we can see it on all 3 clients, you see that our attacks are now replicated in multiplayer. I hope that was helpful for you guys and that you're enjoying the tutorials. Please leave me a comment in the section below if you have a specific need or have a question about what we've done so far. I'd be happy to help you out, and stay tuned for the next tutorial.